Hello, my name is Colleen Steppa. I work as a mental health therapist and I'm also a professor. So today's video, I'm just going to be talking about how to find a therapist. Real simple. There's lots and lots of videos like this on the internet. Mine is not going to be terribly different from other ones. I just want everyone to have this information, so I'm making this video to put on my website and put out there for people to get information. So first thing that I would do if I were looking for a mental health therapist was evaluate how I'm going to pay for it. If you have insurance, I would first look at your insurance policy. I'd get out your insurance card. If you have insurance through your work or like your spouse's work or your parents' work, then they might have HR paperwork that has some of this information already laid out. If you don't have that, then you can usually go to the insurance provider's website. They might have a chat feature, they might have a portal online where you can find it, or you can call the number on the back of the card. I know calling those numbers is terrible and annoying, but sometimes you need to talk to a person to find it out. If you hate calling, sometimes there's chat. It really depends on your insurance. So, questions I would ask, I would want to know, what is my responsible portion for mental health therapy services? And sometimes insurance companies use the phrase behavioral health or outpatient behavioral health. So the difference is outpatient behavioral health is what we think of as like traditional therapy. So like you and a therapist, you go into the therapist's office or you see them online and then you leave and then you go home. You're not staying in a facility like a rehabilitation center. That's what we call inpatient. If you want that, then I would ask for that. But if you're wanting like traditional, just like going to the office, then coming home type therapy, they call that outpatient. And yes, I'm from Minnesota. You probably hear that in my out. So I would ask for outpatient behavioral health or mental health therapy, and then ask the responsible portion is what you pay per session. So there's the insurance covered portion, and then there's your responsible portion, which is what you want to know, like how much does it cost me, right? I would also ask if mental health services go towards your deductible. If those expenses work towards meeting that deductible, you'd want to know how much the deductible is, and then what the coverage will be after you meet the deductible. So a deductible, I'm not going to explain really in depth, but basically a deductible is a number. It's usually like in the thousands. I guess there are some people who have low deductible plans. I think the lowest I ever saw was like $500. I don't know everything about insurance, but like the deductible might be like $2,500 or $3,500 per year. So if you have like spent that much money in going to doctors and dentists and whatever else counts towards that deductible, I think dentist is different. That's dental. Again, I don't work for insurance companies. So like, let's say that I went to the doctor to get an antibiotic, and then I had like some other things that I had to like, I broke my arm. You probably meet your deductible if you break your arm because you have to get it set and then you spend a bunch of money. There's a cap on how much you're going to have to spend, which is the out of pocket max for the year. Anyway, after you meet your deductible, usually stuff gets cheaper. So it's important to know that for therapy because there's this magic number that they set. So maybe midway through the year, your therapy, instead of costing you $60 in a copay per session, you might now pay like $10 per session. And that's a little bit more relevant if you're in the middle or the end of the year, as opposed to right now. I'm making this video in January. Pretty much no one's met their deductible yet. So everybody's kind of starting at square one because usually the deductible resets at the beginning of the calendar year. So that's just a little bit of what I would ask my insurance provider. You can also ask your insurance provider to give you a list of approved therapists in your area. However, what I've heard people say is that they get like a giant packet that's like overwhelmingly large. You can get that packet and then narrow it down by using one of the websites that I'm going to have listed below. Or you can just start on one of those websites and then contact your insurance. I would just recommend you know some of that information ahead of time about like your deductible and your responsible portion, so you're not like surprised with the bill that you get. Because me as a therapist, I know this comes as a shock to a lot of clients, but like I have no idea what you're going to pay per session. I'm credentialed with 2 insurance providers, and I will, send my billing to them, but I have absolutely no idea what your copay is. I don't know how much they're going to cover for your session or not. Even if you and another client that I have the exact same insurance provider, you have different plans, and I have no clue what your plan is. I just know like the information that's on your insurance card for billing purposes. So you have to kind of dig a little bit to know that. So that's the insurance side of it. If you go that route, um, if you're doing that, then I'm going to list like 3 websites, and 2 of them I would use if I have insurance, and one of them I would use if I don't. So if you're going through insurance, I would use Psychology Today or Therapy Den, or both. You can use both. I would just go on there. They have options where you can select like your service area, like your zip code. What are the issues that you want help with? So those would be like anxiety, depression, body image, stress, addiction, trauma, lots of different things. So I'd select what those are. Then I would select like if they have a zip code, especially in a place like Phoenix. Phoenix is huge, so if I like sought out a therapist and I just wrote Phoenix, they could be like an hour away. So I would use the zip code feature if you're in a pretty dense area or if you're in a large city. If you want online, you don't have to have somebody who's nearby you. You could just search by state. And you can also usually put that in your search criteria if you want online therapy only. So like that's like video chat. I'm not talking about things like BetterHelp because I don't really endorse that type of website. I am not really confident that doing therapy by text is really the same effectiveness as doing therapy by video. So I'm not talking about that in this video today. So you can select based on like some of your preferences. Then you'll have a list of therapists that meet those qualifications. There's usually an option on their profile to send them an email. As a therapist, the emails that I like to see, I would like for someone to introduce themselves, like say their name, what they want for therapy, like, hi, my name is Katie, and I'm looking for therapy because I recently lost my job. I'm feeling very stressed out. I noticed that I'm like drinking more, whatever it is, the issues that they're dealing with. And I know that when I was a child, there were some instances of trauma that I want to process. Just a basic overview. It gives an idea for the therapist of what they can like lead in the conversation. And it also gives me an idea of if what you're asking me for is way off base of what I'm allowed or able to do for you. For example, if somebody sent me an email and then they said that like they were in like an active suicidal, episode or something, that's not something that I can do in outpatient therapy. I would recommend to them to like contact a helpline or something. I would not recommend seeing an outpatient therapist at that point. So it's a good idea to just give them a little bit of a heads up what you want to do, what you want to talk about. From there, the people that you contact will usually contact you back. Not everybody's great at it, to be honest. Some therapists don't answer their emails very often. I think it's terrible. I think, to be honest, like if you're a therapist out there, you have a responsibility to keep your postings up to date. And if you don't have room for new clients, then you should not advertise because it wastes people's time. But that's just me like going on. I try to make my profile pretty clear, saying like that I'm either have openings or I don't, or like what types of payments I can accept. Like for example, I don't work with children under 18, and that's clearly stated on my website and my profile. But it's good to just mention those things when you're contacting the therapist. Like if you want individual therapy, couples therapy, family therapy, children, whatever. So send a few of those. Hopefully you get a response back. If you don't, I would go back again and like try different people. Personally, I'd give a therapist about like 3 days, and if they didn't respond to me, I would be like, yeah, you don't check your email enough for me. That's my bias. I don't like it when people don't check their email. I think it's rude. So that's what I would do. And honestly, that's what I have done when I've sought out my own therapy. I would start with those websites. The difference between Psychology Today and Therapy Den, Psychology Today is a bigger index of therapists. There's more people on it, and I think it's international. I think you can find it in other countries, although I've never done that. Can't personally say like if that's good or not. Therapy Den is smaller, but it has more options for like allied types of therapy, like for example kink allied. Like if you want a therapist who's going to be accepting of like ethical non-monogamy, or if you want to look for a therapist who has a certain cultural or ethnic identity, you can do that on Therapy Den, but you can't do that on Psychology Today. So that's a bit of the difference. You also, on both websites, you can look for a therapist who's allied with a certain like religious practice or who's familiar with it, if that's something that you want. Okay, so those websites. Insurance, I would recommend those. If you don't have insurance, then I would recommend you start with a website called Open Path. That website is a collective of therapists who have agreed to pay or who have agreed to charge like less than $80 per session. So $80 is the cap for like family or marriage, $60 is the cap for individual. So it's pretty affordable. It's just charging a card on file, just like a point of sale purchase almost. Like you put a card in your like you give the card information in a secure form to the therapist and they charge your card every time you see them. So it's like cash payment. That's a good resource. I will say there's not as much choice as the other websites because there's just not as many therapists on there because the pay is lower. So like, for example, like I will list myself on OpenPath, but my OpenPath slots go like instantly. They're like once I post an opening on OpenPath, I get a bunch of messages within like a day or two, and then the opening is closed because so many people need affordable therapy because it's like a societal issue and not enough people have it. And I understand. So there's just not as many openings sometimes. If you want something really, really specific, it might be hard to find on there. However, it's a great resource and I really love it and I personally use it myself. So I would look on there. You can do some of the same filters for therapists that you can on Psychology Today or Therapy Den. You can filter for location, online or in person. You can filter for like the treatment modality. I mean, the caveat with modality, if you're brand new to therapy, you might be like, what even is a modality? If you have no idea what that means, then don't worry about it. Like, I know a lot of websites will say, like, these are the questions you need to ask a therapist. You need to understand these things. If you don't know, like, what CBT or DBT or EMDR or IFS or, like, attachment-based or solution-focused, if you have no idea what any of those are, just, that's okay. It's not your job to, like, have the education and training to know all those acronyms. You should be able to ask your therapist, hey, have you worked with people who are dealing with X problem? Or would you be comfortable working with X problem? And then they should be able to answer you. Or like, what kind of things might we do together? Can you explain that to me? Can you describe that to me? For me, like being an informed consumer of therapy, things that have turned me off when I've gotten messages back from other therapists that I think are like little red flags or maybe yellow flags. I don't like it when someone uses jargon and they refuse to explain it to me. So if someone's doing that and you feel uncomfortable, you can feel free to just not respond to that message or to seek out a different therapist. That's okay. You should understand what they're doing with you and they should explain it to you in words that you get. You also have the right to see different people to decide who you want to go with. Like, I don't understand the idea that you would like just pick a therapist and just be with them because they accept your insurance and they're the first one that contacted you back. They might not be the best one for you. And it's very okay, in my opinion, to tell the therapist, hey, I'm just like booking a session with you, or I'm doing an initial consultation with you, like a phone call, like a 15-minute phone call. And I'm talking to a few other people too. If they have a problem with that, I would have a problem with the fact that they had a problem with it. Because I think it's normal and we should encourage people to be empowered to shop around a little bit. So like, yeah, I have actually had therapists be uncomfortable that I was shopping around and that kind of made me not want to see them. That could be my personal bias. I think that people should feel free to shop around because it's an expensive and intensive service that they're getting. So, one of the number one predictors of whether or not therapy will work is your connection and your relationship with the therapist. So, if you meet with somebody or if you do like an initial consult phone call and they're like rude or they make you feel bad or you just have like a really bad vibe, it's okay to not work with them. It's okay. You're not you're not required. You can, you don't have to tell them why. You can just go with someone else. So that's really like a long explanation of what I would kind of look for. The vibe, the general feeling of like, do they make efforts to make you feel comfortable, to like answer your questions, to respect your time? Are they on time? Those are things that are important to me. They may not be as important to everybody. I know some people are like 5 minutes late to everything. I'm gonna say, when if my therapist is 5 minutes late to every therapy session, they're not gonna be my therapist for very long, because I hate that. I really hate it. Uh, so if you have certain deal breakers, it's okay. Those are all parts of the relationship. Um, if you find that you're so picky that no therapist ever meets your expectations, then maybe that's a whole other thing. But I think it's usually the opposite that's true. Usually people put up with a lot of weird stuff from therapists because they don't know that it's abnormal or that it's not okay. And just to finish out this video, I'll say that if you find something your therapist is doing feels harmful, or you're concerned that it's unethical, you can at any point bring it up to them and say, like, I don't like this, I want to change what we're doing, can we please talk about what's happening? If you don't feel safe doing that, you can just stop going to therapy, unless you're court mandated, unless there's some like repercussions, like you're going to go to prison or lose custody of somebody. If you stop going, then you can stop going to therapy. It's a service that you chose to pay for. It's like getting your nails done. Not really, but like, you can go to a different salon. You could stop getting your nails done altogether, right? It's not something that you're locked in forever. You can decide if you want to go or not. If you feel like you're going too often, or you want to like go more often, you can ask for those things, and your therapist and you should be making those choices together. So, finally, if your therapist does something you think is unethical, every single one of us has to have like our license somewhere that's visible to our clients, or on our intake paperwork, or I think both. And you can report us to the state licensing board. So if a therapist asks you to do something that you think is wildly unethical, like bartering bartering therapy for services, like, oh, you don't have to pay for a session this week, but will you come mow my lawn? Like, that's unethical. Or like wanting to hang out with you outside of therapy, or making you feel uncomfortable, and like some maybe like being sexually forward, any of those kinds of things, you can report them to the state licensing board. So all you have to do is just Google what their license type is. Like, for example, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I would just Google like Arizona Board of Social Work. You can find a place to file a complaint. So yeah, I hope that's helpful for everyone, and I wish you luck finding therapy. Bye. Have a good night.